Hey everyone, I'm filming this video in a car. This was gonna happen eventually, so we're just gonna roll with it. Oh, that's a car pun. Start over! A couple days ago, a few of you began contacting me about this, so I watched it as soon as I could, and now I'm gonna tell you what I thought of it. National Theatre Live, which is a British group, so it's spelled Theatre, R-E at the end, has started showing a different filmed production of a live play each week on their YouTube channel, which I think is titled National Theatre. This week's play, which will be available to watch until Thursday, April 16th, is a 2015 production of Jane Eyre, directed by Sally Cookson. I didn't know anything about this going into it, aside from what I'd heard from those of you who told me about it, and many thanks to those of you who were so thoughtful and let me know about it so that I wouldn't miss it. In a nutshell, I liked the play overall. I wasn't sure about it at first. I was a little startled in the beginning when adult Jane starts crying like a newborn baby. I was like, oh, this is... I don't know. As an adaptation of Jane Eyre, it's pretty darn close. The two-act play is about 3 hours long, and that's longer than several of the screen adaptations. So they have an advantage, and they do a good job squeezing in a lot of Charlotte Bronte's dialogue. They do make some of their own additions, which is... okay. I felt like thematically they made it a little more feminist, a little less spiritual, and they gave a few nods to the Mad Woman in the Attic theory. I'm not a proponent of that interpretation, but the way they handled it was so subtle that I'm not even sure that they were really making that point or not, and it's kind of up to the audience to see it that way if they choose to. I wouldn't choose to see it that way, but I still saw the implications, so what am I saying? I don't know. Just roll with it! But anyway, changes to Bronte's book are slight. Time spent at Gateshead is about 23 minutes. Jane's childhood at Lowood is about the same. The St. John section is the one that seems the most truncated. It's getting crammed in close to the end, but it still hits the essential notes. The biggest plot change, I think, is just that Jane runs into Rochester when she's on her way to Thornfield. I take it she meets him as he's leaving for a while, since a period of time then passes before they meet officially and they recognize each other. This isn't really a negative change, but I'm not sure why they did it, unless it was just change for change's sake. There are some characters that are cut out. There's no Miss Temple. St. John just has one sister. Blanche is really the only guest we meet. But these changes make sense for what they're dealing with. This is a very simple, minimalist production. The set design consists of ramps and ladders and posts and stairs, and the 10 cast members make full use of the stage, running sometimes literally all over the space, which can feel both vast and intimate. A group of musicians are nestled center stage. It's not a musical, but there is a strong musical component, mainly in the transitions from scene to scene. And there's a female soloist, Melanie Marshall, who also plays Bertha, which is interesting. She sings a number of solos, and she has a great voice. She sets the mood, responds to the action, reflects Jane's inner turmoil. The music is another thing that I was like, I don't know about this, but I got used to it, and it was actually pretty cool. Song choices come from all different genres, and I think the most intriguing was the use of the Noel Coward song Mad About the Boy, and Crazy by Gnarls Barkley. The rendition is totally different, so you don't recognize it at first, but then when the singing starts, you recognize the words, and I was like, oh, okay. It was really different, and I liked it. The performances are good, very committed. Everybody has to be very active, which is not something that you would expect from a Jane Eyre play. 4 of the cast members play many different parts, and I looked forward to seeing who would fill which roles. Sometimes it was predictable, like the woman playing Aunt Reed also played Mrs. Fairfax. I could see that coming. But sometimes it was a surprise. And I give the supporting actors tremendous credit for pulling off different characters and sometimes switching from one to the other within seconds. They also do some of the lighting, moving around on stage with torches, and they help Jane with her costume changes. It's a pretty passionate play. Everybody is sweating thanks to the hot lights and the demanding dialogue and all the climbing and running around they have to do, and the leads are especially intense. Jane is played at all ages, from infancy to adulthood, by Madeline Worrell, who gives it her all. Something about her made me feel like this Jane is perpetually on the brink of a breakdown. She's strong, but she's brittle at the same time. I know, that's contradictory, but I'm not sure this Jane has a firm hold on her composure at any point in the play, which is at odds with my own view of her. She becomes even more vulnerable when Rochester comes into it. Rochester is played by Felix Hayes. He is humorous. He gets most of the funny lines, which you would expect. Rochester generally does get most of the funny lines, or it's his delivery that makes them funny. But he's also pretty forceful and abrupt and abrasive. Lots of shouting and growling. Jane does her fair share of shouting as well, especially in the proposal. She gets really worked up. But as far as Rochester goes, I felt like, well, I wouldn't fall in love with him, but okay. He's kind of a jerk, but he's a jerk who's amusing and is actually a sensitive soul on the inside. Between the two of them, there's a kind of tension. I would identify it as anxious tension. I was nervous that Jane was just gonna fall apart, that any second he could say the wrong thing and she would just break and, I don't know, shatter into a million pieces or jump off the set. There are light touches of humor, though, which I could tell the audience appreciated, although I bet that the laughs would have been bigger if the audience was American, not British. You know how it is. The actress who plays Adele, an adult, plays her totally differently than anyone else has. She's hyper and loud, and it's like, whoa! Pilot, the dog, was my favorite performance. The actor who plays Pilot also plays Uncle Reed and Brocklehurst and Mason, and he just threw himself into playing Pilot. That was delightful. There's a point when Adele and Pilot are both running around the stage like crazy, and it's like, whoa, this is the most high-energy Jane Eyre I have ever seen. It's kind of modernized. I mean, some of the music is contemporary, and Rochester does drop a few F-bombs when he falls off his horse, but in other ways, it is, as Bronte wrote it, it's period appropriate, so it's kind of like half and half. I think those are pretty much my thoughts on this one, so you should check it out while it's available if you're interested in it. I enjoyed seeing what they did with it. There are things that surprised me. There are a few things I would definitely have done differently if it was me. Things that made me pause while I was watching it and say, I don't know about that. But this isn't my interpretation. It's the interpretation of the director and the actors. And they did a really good job at telling the whole story, or as much of the story as they could cram into 3 hours, and making it engaging and emotional. It's not corny, and it's not boring, and I'm really grateful I got a chance to see it, so I want to say thank you again to all of you who contacted me and said, hey, there's this thing happening, and you should check it out, and we want to hear what you think about it. So, thank you. I have a link to the video in the description below, so you can watch it for yourself, and remember, it looks like it'll only be available until Thursday the 16th, so don't wait too long, and there is probably a time when it will disappear, but I'm not sure what time that is. It will vary for you based on whatever time zone you're in. I hope you enjoyed this unplanned review, and if you have seen National Theatre Live's upload of Jane Eyre, please go ahead and share what you thought of it. I am curious to hear what you all think, so go ahead and leave your comments down below. I look forward to reading them, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye!